Hi everyone, this is Mohammed, and in this video we'll explore the AI application which is Bolt.new. Okay, and just before I start, I wanted to let you know that this video has something for everyone to look into to build the web application, and we'll be exploring more on the application Bolt.new. And these are some of the typical questions that I ask myself. So, at the end, the purpose of this video is to share some of the motivation for you to go and try utilizing some of these applications, which are more relevant for AI and how it can help us within our industry. Okay, so are we really investing in innovation? Can we afford at this point to ignore AI? And really, AI is just beyond the chat window, and we'll see that in a bit. Okay, so some of you might be wondering, like, what exactly is the terminology front-end development? Think about it like the visible part of a building, which is like the exterior skin of a house. Okay, so the front end is basically a job title. So there are front-end developers, there are back-end developers. People get paid to develop these web applications. And in a simple terminology, if you see the web application sort of consists of, like, you got an HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript. And I would give you one example here. So if you look into the Autodesk platform services, you would eventually see that there is a set of APIs which are available to do various activities to develop for the Autodesk Construction Cloud, or develop some custom solutions with the help of these platform services. So if you happen to see here, this is an HTML code. You got some CSS for styling, and the JavaScript for sort of making the interactive visualization. So if you happen to see here, based on this relevant code, what it is basically doing is that it's sort of giving you the flexibility to make this viewer. Okay. So HTML is just the foundation structure. CSS is just the finishes or the touch. The JavaScript basically adds the functionality for interactivity. Okay. And I guess I wanted to share some of my experience with the web application development. So, for instance, if you look into the traditional process, what we typically do is we initially start with some sketches, then we start, writing the codes, and then there are some feedbacks back and forth between the development team versus the technical team, and this often results like in time. Typically to do an application, a mock-up might take you like weeks of time, and if there is any changes or if there is any feedback from the users, this mock-up would eventually result um, in sort of multiple iterations, and also the time for deployment, etc. So that becomes like very time-taking activities. But with Bolt, like you would see eventually that a lot of things get a bit faster. And there are some of the applications that I managed to do with the help of this applications. I think there were about 10 or 15 applications that I managed to do over the last few weeks, and I can tell you that it's bloody amazing too. Okay. You might be aware the applications like Speckle or the Data Open Company, or the one that we just saw, the Autodesk Application Services. So they do have some viewers, and if you would like to write or utilize some of their APIs, you need to eventually spend some time to learn about these different tech stacks and then code it. But with the help of this Bolt, you can eventually give a prompt, and then it will eventually help you to do that. Okay. So there are quite a lot of ideas that I had, and then this is how I started to build it. So I built like few of the applications, but I would eventually show you what it looks like. Okay, so there are some prompts that I have already made, and which I would eventually share with you now. So this is the application, which is the Bolt.new. As part of the Thanksgiving, they do have some 2 million free tokens. So if you would like to take benefit, then log into the Bolt.new and then you would be able to basically utilize it. So let's try with a very simple exercise. So imagine like, I go for this day-to-day meetings, and then after the meeting I might eventually have some transcript, and what I really wanted to do with that transcript is that I wanted to create some actionable items based on the meeting. So I can eventually take the transcript, go to the ChatGPT and or the Cloudy, and then paste that summary that would eventually run it. But however, if I wanted to build something for my own, then this is where you can eventually make use of this application. So there is a prompt that I have eventually wrote, which I'll just paste it here. So if you happen to see within this prompt, I'm basically saying that, create a full stack application, integrate the OpenAI. I should be able to upload the audio recording or the file uploader, the AI Pro transcript, and some of the items that I wanted to extract. So the key items that I wanted to extract is like the deadlines, the insights, and some of the questions, and keep track of those conversations, etc. So based on this prompt, what it does is that it will, so after I prepare the prompt, I can just simply enter. What it does is that this itself, imagine this browser now as a computer. Okay, so what it does is that it takes your code or the prompt, and then it starts writing the entire code within the browser. Okay, so you don't need to, run the code within the Visual Studio or the VS Code and, install all of these different packages. What it is doing here, as you can see that it's creating now, whatever the files that it is creating, it tells you that it's creating. Any files that it is updating, it gives you a message that it's updating. And similarly now, it's organizing all the codes within this area. Once this um, the development is finished, you can eventually head over to the preview to basically look into the application. And then once the application is ready, you can eventually deploy it as well very faster. You can eventually download the entire code here. But again, the beauty here is that you're not really spending any time to write this thousands and lines of codes. Everything is pretty much automated. All the components, the React hooks, pretty much everything is being developed or created by the tool. So you can see that we just with the help of that prompt that we have given, what it has done is that it is eventually developing this UI. Okay, just give it a sec. Okay, it should be loading. Okay, so now you can see that either we can record, and then based on the recording, it would eventually make the minutes of meeting, or you can upload an audio. But let's say I wanted to have a feature here where I can eventually paste the text. So I can just go back here and then I can say, please add an input to paste the transcript and change. Okay, let's not do all this in this demo. So please add an input to paste the transcript, right? So just add the prompt again, because I don't have a feature here at this point to add the transcript. So now what it is doing is that it's going back and it's creating another components for the transcript. And also there is the env file, so where you can eventually go and then update your OpenAI code. Alright, so what it might have eventually done now is it might have eventually added that window. So while it is loading, yeah, so it added this transcript. So now I just Googled for this transcript, and then I got one for the Zoom training transcript. So I'll just eventually copy this text, and I go back here to this window, and then I paste, and then I say process. So now, based on the initial prompt that we have given, it has got the agenda for us, the task, the decisions which has been done, the questions, and the attendees who were there part of these meetings, the deadlines, and the follow-ups, and the risk. Imagine you are eventually paying a subscription for one of these apps, which can eventually auto join these meetings and then create these summaries for you. But instead of doing that, you can eventually have your own version. You could be more creative to build or add some more functionalities. So the one which I created for myself, what I have added as a feature is that I added the AI integration within this, where I'm saying that if please write me in email notification for the reminders based on the multiple meetings that I have. So imagine this is more like in meetings for the project managers, where you have multiple meetings throughout the day. You don't recall what was pending, what is outstanding, but that this can eventually help you to remind that. Okay. So I guess you got the idea on how this is working, but if you really look into the way that this can eventually help us, so what I did was I prepared a prompt, and I have asked the Bolt.new to build an IFC viewer based on that open company. Okay, so they do have a library or the API where they can where you can eventually build your code. So basically what I did is that I just said, I prepared a prompt where I said I need a viewer where I can eventually upload the files, etc. And then what it has done is that it created all of these codes for me. Again, thousands of lines of codes, probably in half an hour of time. I lost few tokens for this session, but again, it's worth sharing with the community where you can eventually see that I have an IFC viewer integrated here. I didn't wrote anything, code from my end. It's just basically the prompt. So, but now you can see I can upload the file, I zoom out, zoom in, rotate. There is an option for measure. I can further go in and customize. So imagine if you go in further here to look into these various components that it has, etc. You can download this, as I said before, and then in fact you can deploy this as well, and you can share it very quickly with the team. That's the backend part, which we are not covering within this video. But again, if you understand, the purpose here is that without even touching the code or writing the code ourselves, I managed to build it. Okay, this is a very interesting one, which we will discover now, where I'm going to use this Bolt to basically prepare an EIR assessment. Okay, so if you look into it, what I've basically said is that, prepare a capability assessment forum, and the requirements were as detailed below. So look for, like, you got the exchange information requirement from the client. Part of the RFP process, you would like to ensure that, all of these entity has been done. And once you summarize all of these requirements, you would like to generate a PDF report out of that. And ultimately, if you would like to save that information back into the database, you can eventually do that. So, and then I also wanted to have some scoring for this compliance tracking based, and then I can further customize it. But this is just to give you the taste that quite a lot can be done with the help of this application. And this is where I was trying to tell you in the previous one. I managed to build a Kobe data validation, some custom rule that I was using for the data checking, etc. Okay, so now once I have that, I'll just eventually say run. And now what it is doing is that based on the feedback that I've given, it's eventually going and adding that UI for me. While this is doing that, if you happen to look into some of these guidance, so I pulled up one of these capability and capacity assessment from the University of Cambridge. It got a series of questionnaire that can eventually help you to evaluate based on the different parts of the ISO. Okay, so I'll just eventually take this link because I know that there are a set of questions here. I can eventually download it, but prefer to take it just as a link here, just for the sake of the demo. Okay, so it's telling us basically what it is doing at the moment. Okay, it's loading the preview now. So it's added the UI components, the project creation form, the project management interface. Looks like there are some error here. And what this can let's say if you have an error, you just basically copy that and you paste that error and then ask it to fix it. Debugging is important, and while when we were previously discussing on this, where we said that typically our process is that you first have some initial sketches, etc., but here you are really not going through that overall workflow. Basically you are working on a functional prototype where you're just refreshing it based on your requirements. So as you tend to see what are the information that you would like to further build or add the functionalities, you can eventually just do that within this prompt. Okay, hopefully it's not gonna give any error this time. And I think we talked about that before. As like once your prototypes are ready, you can eventually deploy it. If you want to download the source code as well, you can eventually do that. So now you can see we got a dashboard, the requirements, the stakeholders, the report. So once everything is ready, we can eventually add that feature. So now going to the dashboard, I click on new project, nothing is happening. So what I would like to say is that when I click on new project, nothing happens. Also add the local storage and build the questionnaire for the following websites. So let's ignore the spellings. All I just want is that I wanted to show you these functionalities. Okay, so what we are basically saying is that, when we click on this new project, nothing really happens. So we give the link and we said, like, out some more functionalities. We don't want like a backend storage at this point. We just want a local storage. Gotcha. So now it's adding, you can see that there is a project name, project description, start date, end date that it has added. It's also taking that requirement from the link that we have given, and it had added a project card form. You can see that there are some buttons that it added. So hopefully this is going to work now. We'll look into the preview. Now, so now it tells me that you can now create a new project button, fill out the questionnaire, and this is not sort of a dummy application that it is building. It's adding some user proof requirements. So what I mean by that is when I click on this new project and if I say next, you can see that it's telling basically that I did not fill that information. So it's adding that level of information. So I can add the project name, I can add the project description. If there is a start date, you could eventually see it takes a lot of time to build a UI like that. I mean, it's generally like weeks of time for few developers. Okay, and you can select the date. It remembers the information that we are eventually selecting. I can go back to the next page. I can add all the relevant information. You can see that the project was set up here. And if I go here into the view detail now, I can add a requirement. So you can see that what type of project it is, medium, high. Again, I'm just going to fill this information. So I'll just say create the requirement, stakeholder. This should be coming soon. And then once all of this information is ready, I can eventually generate a PDF. And whatever this information is, it can go back and store into the database. All right. I guess this is it for this session. I would eventually try to do another video on the backend development for this application. I don't know when I'm gonna do that, but let's see. And what I really like the team to do is that if you have some more ideas and if you would like to take benefit of this one, then please make sure that you head over to this application, which is Bolt.new. Right now there are some free tokens which are available for Thanksgiving, so please make use of that. And if this process again resonates with you, let me know in the comments, and do share if you think that this would help the other team members as well. All right, then see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you find this education entertaining.